you're going to see, oh, he doesn't stand with that philosophy, he does with this, and you're going to meet both characters through their conflict and dialogue and just their lifestyles.
Welcome back to the Men's Adventure Fiction Podcast, the first adventure fiction podcast of the new year. We're back, baby. 2026 is a go. And to start off 26 with an absolute bang, this man, L.S. Goodish, reached the bestseller list for men's adventure fiction with Fire in the Tall Grass almost a year later, which is an incredible accomplishment. So great work, dude. If you're watching this and you have not picked this book up, now is the chance. Jump over there and snag a copy of Fire in the Tall Grass. Too exciting, dude. What an accomplishment. How you feeling?
Good, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the kindness for Fire in the Tall Grass lately. It's been really cool and perfect timing since the sequel comes out in a month, it comes out February 24th. So I'm happy people are getting to know the character, and I hope you guys enjoy the character because I'm loving this second book personally more. We'll get into, I think it's an appropriate discussion we're going to have today because I've been thinking a lot about that concept, which, to spoil it, we're going to be, you saw in the title, but we're going to be talking about kind of like balancing action and character development. And with your recent book, Crime is My Caper, also going back. Absolutely. Dude, also new release bestseller, almost at number 1. So we need you guys to push further there because I'd be so sick to have a number 1 new release as well right now.
Very cool.
A show there showing through Veritas and you guys showing what men's adventure fiction's list needs to look like because there's some scary looking stuff on there. You ever go on that list?
There sure is.
Horrifying stuff. But with that story going back and kind of showcasing kind of the groundwork for Nick Colt's character and his mentality and his psychology, my book does a very similar thing where we both decided to go back and build up the character before we move forward. And with that kind of character development comes that question and that fear of like, am I turning this too much into like a character study or a boring kind of more literary fiction thing when I'm supposed to be writing men's adventure fiction? So what was that process and negotiation like for you in Crime is My Caper as you wrote it?
That's a great question. Couple things right off the bat. First, this episode topic comes from Grayson Sullivan from the Discord. We started a little channel in there called Episode Topic Suggestions, so you can jump in there. If you've had something that you've been dying for us to talk about and you've been dropping it in the comments and we've just been missing it somehow, jump into the Discord, go to that Episode Topic Suggestion and say, this is what I think we should talk about. It's not guaranteed we'll talk about it. There's a whole list of things that were suggested there that we will eventually get around to. Super good ideas, but this one was perfect for, like Luke said, for today. And then the other thing is, having started reading Noah Redford 2, I got to tell you guys, you are in for a treat. But to answer your question, with kind of figuring out, I don't know, I think you said it before, you love to see character through action, and I think that kind of Nate Colt in Crime is My Caper and just in general is an action-packed guy. That dude just sometimes thinks first. Most of the time he doesn't think at all. It just goes straight into it. It's all can be fairly reactionary. So to go back and kind of, because I think that's one of the interesting things about Crime is My Caper is that there's building blocks and kind of a base layer of what the story is, but it is sort of a meandering plot. Like, things happen for sure, and they lead to other things that happen, but there is no overarching kind of thing that you're like, oh, this is what we're doing, this is where we're going. It does become more evident as the story goes on, but it really is, like you said before, is this a character study? What's going on? But I think it was in a positive way.
Yeah.
And so to see that, I think that's what's important, is you have this character kind of processing all of these things that are going on to him, kind of almost from like an outside perspective, right? Like the book starts with Nate recounting how his uncle, who is his last kind of alive male role model, he found out his uncle is the one who was responsible for his father's death. And like I said, his uncle was his kind of first and final role model here, and his father was his original one. So to have that kind of at war in his mind, the whole plot is based on the idea of like, my uncle is a bad guy and I hate him, but my father was a good guy and he got killed. So he's like essentially a loser. Not necessarily like, oh, you're lame, you're a loser, but like literally, and like he is gone. And so does his path of being a good guy equate to not making it through life? And then does my uncle's path of being a bad guy but a terrible guy equal success? And which path do I now go on? What trajectory do I now go on? And then that's just interspersed with him having to face those by taking action and fighting countless people to try and engage all of that in life and death situations that keep coming. Some of them he puts themselves in because he does bad things or makes the wrong choices. Other times he's doing it selflessly. So it's very interesting, and I think that the action flows from the character as opposed to just being like, oh, let's just, you're not learning anything about the character by the action. So I don't know. It's a good thing we've got a long time on this episode to talk about, because I think I just opened like 15 different cans of worms to jump into. Right. But what about you with Noah? I think your rendition of a younger guy is probably more accurate, because Nate Colt's coming out. I think he's in the 18 to 20 range here, but he's just coming out swinging in Crime is My Caper. Probably more than any sane 18 to 20-year-old of modern day would go. But that's I always try to lean back to Nate Colt being more like the Louis L'Amour character, who's like 16 and has already killed like 40 people or something, like his father was murdered and he has to go on a killing spree or whatever. But what about you? I think Noah is like actually a fantastically grounded young man in this, to reality. How is all that going?
I appreciate that, and I think that's why this conversation is like helpful for us to have now, and it's cool that we get the space to air this out, because it's like Fire in the Tall Grass is getting all this love and attention, and I'm loving that. I'm appreciating that so much, but it does make me so fearful with how different this new one is, because that Noah Redford is like a fully established post-war, older right. Noah Redford, and it's like I really did want to showcase what would a 16, 17-year-old Noah Redford look like at kind of ground zero for his life, when things are in this moment where basically his entire, upbringing and foundation crumbles, and he's just a lost boy wandering like a dog, throughout life.
Right.
And that character is obviously much different than that guy. And I really like what you brought up too, of like the meandering plot, because these character studies, not just ours and stuff like that, but I think in general, it is more so like we're following the character stories through their action. We're kind of seeing where their consequences lie, where their choices, what that unlocks for them. But in something like Fire in the Tall Grass, Treasure is My Trade, there's an actual MacGuffin. In men's adventure fiction, a lot of time, there's like a MacGuffin, like the shield and stuff like that, like things we have to find. And then the audience knows, pace-wise, like, okay, I know what I'm leading towards. We're heading towards, we're going to try to get this artifact.
Right.
Or like a boxing film, like we're going to fight Apollo Creed in the end of this movie. We kind of know that. And I think one of the bigger fears for me, and where, I'd like to see your take on this, and even as like a fan and a reader or a watcher, like, what is it or how is it that we can keep the audience engaged when they don't know what flipping the page leads to, when they can't be sold on the premise of like, oh yeah, I want to see that happen. It's more like, do I like this character enough to follow him forward,
Right. I think that's a great question. And I think it also is, for me personally, and we've talked about this before, my top 3 favorite authors are all character writers, right? They write good plots, but I said this last week or the week before, I can't remember when. Every Chester Drum book is if you read a Chester Drum book, you're not going to be like, man, that was the best detective mystery noir I've ever read. You're going to be like, that was a good plot, but it was put into the next level because of how cool Chester Drum is and how much I like him. You know what I mean? So when you have those 20 books stacked on top of each other, you could pick any one of them and be like, yeah, this is one of my favorite books of all time. And it may not be the like exemplary crime story. You know, like you may read it and you'd be like, oh, that plot was actually pretty basic. But that's at the end of the day, no matter how good a plot is, how good a story can be, it will have stuff that's like tropey or tired or overused, or there's just no way. We're sitting on what,
It'd be entitled to this
conservatively,
litter.
yeah, 10,000 years of storytelling, you know, so you just start overusing the same things. So they factor in through every story. But what doesn't, and what is different is the person who these things are happening to. And I think that that's why it works. I think that both, well, I'll answer for Noah since you asked about him. He's a super engaging character. And so to jump back to when he's just kind of starting this life of adventure, it's really exciting. And one of my favorite movies. It doesn't have a lot of love, but it is the perfect movie because both on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes, it's on IMDb it's 6.9 out of 10, and Rotten Tomatoes is 69%. So it's perfect. The world all agrees, but it's Solo: A Star Wars Story, and that movie was the intro to a trilogy. And a lot of people didn't like it. They said, "Oh well, he didn't get it right. They didn't get the character of Han Solo right. The story's not good. They did too much that they didn't need to. They explained too much of why he is the way that he is, and all this stuff." And to that I say, get out of here. I don't care about that. But what they did really well is that was supposed to be the first of a trilogy, right? And so you start with this Han Solo who just got out of being a orphan, stuck in this weird like Dickensian scenario where he has to steal from people to bring to his like weird crime boss, orphan mother person. And that's how he breaks out of that and he joins the Empire's military, and he gets in some really bad spots, and then he pulls off a heist with these criminals. And they do a great job at the start in that orphanage explaining how this guy has always dreamed of being this like outlaw hero similar to Robin Hood, which obviously they don't reference Robin Hood because it's a Star Wars movie. And so they give you this really great, believable reason that this guy would be a young, excited upstart who's like looking forward to life. And then something happens, multiple things happen throughout that movie that lead to him becoming a little more jaded, a little more angry, a little more cranky, which is what you get in A New Hope, which is supposed to be 2 more movies away. And then they just cut the whole thing and they said, we're not making any more movies. So
Dang.
if they had made those movies, I think everyone would agree that that first one was a fantastic setup for what was to come if they had done a good job with the next 2. I love the movie by itself, but I think that if you view it in like this is the first of a trilogy, it is masterfully done, because it will lead to him becoming jaded and messed up. So I think that similarly here with Odyssey of Fire, which I don't think we've said it on the podcast.
Yeah, which is the title that you thankfully gave me because you should have seen the titles I was working with, guys. They weren't so good. And
No, they were definitely good, but you kept posting in all of your Instagram posts. You were like an Americana Odyssey, and I was like, dude, Odyssey is just too good to not slip in
Yeah.
there.
You did a good thing there by changing the title and that.
Thanks, dude.
That was good
Cheers.
stuff.
It's a great story. So I think to that point, though, you're coming back to Noah as he is getting started, right? And not at one point have I read this book and been, oh, this isn't the Noah from Fire in the Tall Grass. I've read it and I've been like, man, I'm excited to see the things that fall into place that impact his character and affect him more so that he becomes more like the guy in Fire in the Tall Grass. But it's not like 2 separate characters in any way. It is like, man, I get to, because that's what Noah from Fire in the Tall Grass and was it Fire on the Water was the one you serialized on your website. I know that guy pretty well, and he's a good friend at this point, you know? And so to go back and see him as a 17-year-old who's dealing with angst and stress and all these outside forces is really cool because it's like, oh, dude, I'm sorry you got to go through this, man. This is tough stuff, but it's. I'm also happy for it because it made you into this cool guy that I know really well later down the road. Like, sorry you got to deal with that, but it's cool to see it unfold and become the guy you are. So I think that if we both were writing bad characters, the character study would be a horrible choice. You know, it would be like, oh man, that was a sick action story. We got to learn about this guy's upbringing. Nah, I don't want to do that. But I think that that's what's. I mean, I remember one of my favorite scenes so far in the book. I haven't, like I said, I haven't finished it at all. Is when he's 17 and he's up against these like crazy odds, and he has no doubt in his ability to use his fists because at 17 he's already a fantastic boxer. And I think that that's so cool, whereas later on he has to face some stuff off with something he's not as comfortable with, and he's like, man, I don't know if I can do this. I think that that's a really good touch. Like there's things that as young men, if you go back to when you were 17, 18, 19, 20, there's stuff that you were super confident about, maybe like stupidly confident about. And then there's other stuff that was like, bro, I got to talk to a girl about my emotions. I don't know how to do that. You know, like there's stuff like that it's just, there's stuff that you were like, yeah, I can climb the side of a building all day, no problem. And then you had another easier task and you're like, no, I can't do that. I'm not able to do that yet. And I think that you did a good job of kind of capturing that.
Thank you, man. And you as well. I think when you were talking, it made me think of what is cool about the younger character study, not just in our books, but with any story out there, is like when you're 17, you make dumb decisions. And
yeah, you do.
It's because it makes sense to them. And that's like, if you're doing your job right, you can help the audience track with where they're coming from. And with you do that, where it's like, you don't need to be doing what you're doing. You shouldn't be doing what you're doing. Maybe there's a smarter way to do it. But for the reader, now we get to see a lot more fun unfold because it's like you just opened a can of worms. And as a 17-year-old, I know I did that. And of course, in the story, Noah does that. It's like, yeah, you probably shouldn't go in there. Obviously, like, what have you even thought about? What is it you didn't think about was on the other side of that? I know you didn't. Because there's me. My dad, I might have brought this up on the podcast before. One of the most forming moments of my entire life was this time where I got 2 super fast speeding tickets back to back. They were both like $97, and then I lost my license. And my dad said to me, he was like, do you even ever think about what tomorrow looks like? And it was just something like that simple. And he left. He walked away after it, and I was like, shit, I actually don't. I really don't. Like, it occurred to me that I was like, I don't think about the road ahead. And it's like, that was a really formulating moment because I started to like let the fog clear from the path ahead and be like, what do I want out of life? Where do I want to go? What do I want to see? What steps do I need to be taking? Because I mean, imagine if you just closed your eyes and just sprinted forward. That's not good. But that's what we do as younger kids sometimes. And that's what you see Nick, Colt, and Noah do at different sections in the book, is like a metaphorical closing of the eyes and sprinting into something that you have no idea where you're going. It's like, yeah. But that is childhood. That is adolescence. That is coming of age. It's a part of the process. So if you are there and you're doing that, dude, that's just the game, Like, it's, don't be beating yourself up about it. That's how you grow. That's how you turn into the person you'll be.
Right. I remember my parents had a really shaky spell during a formative year of my life, and I remember seeing, like, if this is what marriage is like, I don't want to be married at all. And then to similar to what you said, I had almost too clear a view of the future, where it was like, well, that's how future is going to be. Let's do everything we can not to do that. And I made a bunch of stupid choices based off of that presupposition, like taking a very small sample size and being like, oh, this is how it is for everything. Let me just operate like that's the truth. And I think that that's like, maybe the worst part about writing Crime is My Caper was how easily my mind could slip back into that. Because I was thinking, like, how am I going to write like I'm 19, 18? Because I don't know how those guys think. And the next thing you know, Nate Colt's like, well, if bad guy lives, good guy dies, I guess I'm a bad guy. Like, it's so right. I don't know if infantile is the right word, but it's just
so not nuanced, like, though, right? Whatever that is, like a lack of nuance and thinking back then. You're just like black and white.
it's just the classic of like the way that things happen to me and those around me is the only way things could ever happen. So I have to latch on to that. I guess it is just what we do in general is you watch stuff unfold around you and take that in and then operate out of that. But as you grow older, you can watch a wider range of things, I guess, and see that it's different than it was. I mean, it was probably I was dating my she was my girlfriend then, but she's now my wife. And I didn't start dating her until after I was 20, but it wasn't until after we were dating that I started realizing that like we were driving to this place in New Jersey to see one of our favorite musicians play. And it was late at night and we're driving past all these houses with lights on. I was like, dude, it's literally crazy to think that those people have real lives that are just as real to them as mine is to me. Like that's insane, you know? And it wasn't
Yeah,
until I was over 20 that I realized that. So it just goes to show you like that is how I don't know if selfish is the right word. Maybe it doesn't seem like it's intentionally selfish to not realize that other people exist. It just seems like your world is small, you know? And as
right.
your world grows bigger, you realize all these things. And that's kind of what is happening to these characters. These characters are so, both of them are going through um, kind of like big emotional things and trying to process it. And that emotional thing is like the biggest thing in the entire world. There's no realization of the fact that World War One is happening for Noah. No realization that like Nate Colt might be working for bad pirates who are not good guys at all, and he's aligning himself with the wrong side. You know, it's just these guys are like single-minded in their determination to only think about themselves, and I think that to the point of I mean, maybe that is all it takes to write a good young man. You know, is they're just locked into being a stunad. But yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of fun to read and it's a lot of fun to write. Um, Although it can be challenging to write because you're like, dude, why would you be so stupid? What are you doing?
Yeah. And like going back to the kind of general concept of action balanced with character, I think of surfing through my favorite books in my head, and First Blood, of course, I feel like
Hmm.
comes to mind as a great example of, and if you've read the book or if you've seen the movie, same thing will kind of apply here, where it's a real time thriller, which is the first two things I wrote, or first three things I wrote, were like real time thrillers, because I love
Yeah,
that
yeah.
concept of being like in the action. Then I know for a fact that I have to show the character through action because he's not getting out of the
Right.
situation. The situation's right now. And so it's cool in First Blood the way you're able to, without really at all, when you take the movie, for example, like without knowing much at all, you're able to still find investment. But, you know, to your point, it's because of the action. It's you're seeing his competence. You're putting pieces together. It's slowly unfolded. It's the Jason Bourne effect too, of like, how does this guy know all this? What's going on here? And you're like reverse engineering the
Yeah,
interesting
yeah.
backstory rather than like moving forward with it. And there's very interesting ways that you can make that balance happen. And I think real time thriller or being in the action is definitely one of them that I tend to enjoy. I love seeing them work through the intensity because how people handle stress and that does tell you a lot. Again, going to
Yeah.
Crime is My Caper and Odyssey of Fire, it's like it's interesting to see these are two definitely different dudes who have different ways of handling things. I think Noah
Right.
tends to like withdraw and get more isolated. Your guy is more like extroverted, similar to the writers behind them. I think like you're a more social kind of guy and I'm more like reclusive kind of guy. It's interesting to see the types of young men and the types of people as they handle situations and what they lean to and how they go about it. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the real time or what I said there?
Yeah, yeah. I think that that's a the I real time is something I don't necessarily always process because whenever I'm in the story, it always feels like real time, regardless, you know,
Yeah, you got the
especially
first
reading,
person too.
yeah, the first person narratives is really like, it's literally a guy recounting a story to you. Which, quick aside, we may have talked about this before on the podcast. I always am curious what the suspension of disbelief is supposed to be for any first person narrative. Like, what are we thinking is happening in this scenario? Is this
Right.
guy's, is it like his like dear diary at the end of the day, or are we pulled into like I'm one of his friends sitting at the bar listening to him recount this 62,000 word story to me just over a couple
without
slugs
talking
of
once.
yeah. I don't even get to throw in a yeah, tell me more. I'm just literally he's
Just
just
dead silence.
monologuing at me. Or is he sitting there in like his dark office with the blind lights over his eyes and he pulls out his like little tabletop recorder and he's like captain's log. Like what are we believing here? But to that because that's the thing is those are also so not real time because it's all past tense. So you're getting this weird like oh and then this happened and then this happened and then I did this and then I had to avoid this and then I thought this, but at the same time you're like, man, how are you recounting this? Is this like immediately like are we talking like your book ends and then you sat down and you're like I gotta tell somebody about this
Right.
and
Are
then
we
you
in your
go
internal monologue? Because
yeah
how so are you having these side thoughts as you're getting pounded?
right and how is it now possible if we are in your internal monologue that somehow you could actually die and then it just cuts
You could
off in
just
the book?
end. I've always said that'd be the funniest thing ever, dude. Ending a book just mid
I know.
sentence, mid thought. Guy
You get
trips,
like
head just explodes.
here and this is all blank. They just printed a bunch of blank pages to throw you off. So all of this
Terrible
is to
stuff.
say I love real time thrillers, real time
Yeah.
stories, because it is cool. Even like something where the movie happens in exactly an hour and a half, and that's how much time is on the clock or whatever it is. Those are so cool. And to your point of like, you don't really get in situations like that. You don't get time to be like, and if you do, it's always poorly done. It's like, oh man, this case really seems like it's going to affect you, guy, because this is a kidnapping about a young girl. And I remember that your daughter died from a kidnapping by a similar situation. And then all the people reading or watching are like, whoa, that was way too much explaining, dude. Get that out of here. I don't,
Exposition with a hand.
yeah, that was pulled out of the story entirely. My wife will always look at me anytime something like that happens in a movie. She's like, "What are they doing? Why
She
they
gives you
think
the
we're
gym look
idiots?"
from The Office. Just,
Yeah. Um, so I think that it is cool when handled deftly to have that real time thriller unlock different things and you learn things as characters learn them. I think that that's one of my favorite ways to receive information. But there was somewhere I was taking this, and I might have gotten off the train a long way ago. But
it's all
let me
right.
see if I can pull it together.
Yeah, you
Oh,
think about it. If
oh,
not, I have something I pivot to.
I've got something that'll kill this section
Okay.
of the real time thriller. Do you have anything
Yeah,
to
I'm done with
add?
the real time thriller. Mine
Okay,
was going
cool.
to be different anyway.
Um, it made me think of action versus character. Something that we both have agreed is very well done, but not necessarily our favorite, is the John Wick series because it is action over character, or maybe not. Though as I was thinking about this, um, John Wick's character fairly well. He is just kind of a super bland guy, and his only thing he's got going for him is like I have nothing left, so I'm just gonna kill people to deal with it, and that's not really like it's cool because he is a super competent guy, but as the stories unfold, you do get more from him and you see kind of his legacy of danger unfold. But he is very much like it could be any person in there, like it's not necessarily that you're not watching those for John Wick. For Keanu Reeves playing John Wick, you're watching it for Keanu Reeves doing these crazy stunts
Yeah, for
and
the
these
stunts.
these
Right.
great action. So I think that if you have to the point earlier, if you have solely character and it's solely a character study and there is no action, that can be really engaging, but it has to be a really like masterfully handled
Or
storytelling.
like a taxi driver, like someone who's kind of magnificently interesting, where it's like
Yeah,
asks a
exactly.
lot of questions, breaks a lot of philosophies open, and you're like, okay,
Right,
I've got a
right,
lot to chew on here. If there's
right.
going to be no action,
And then the other is true too. If you have only action, I think that doesn't hold up as well. Like certainly critically, you're never going to have an only action story win anything in the Oscars, whereas you can have so many character studies that are just about even boring people win Oscars all the time. So I think that you really got to marry the two of them because if you have like we said, I like John Wick a lot, but I'm
Yeah.
never picking John Wick in my top 25 films because it's so like I think I like John Wick in spite of John Wick, if that makes sense. Like I
Right.
watch him like, oh man, that's gonna be the worst part is Keanu Reeves saying like one line and having no personality at all. But the rest will be super sick.
Yeah, it makes me think of Jack Carr and how he said, like, when writing his character, he wanted his intention to be like, this has to be someone that I would want to get a beer with, I would want to get a coffee with, I would
Yeah.
want to hang out with first, and then we can go into the story. And I think that kind of makes me think about what is missing from John Wick for me, and a little bit for you too. It's like I can't imagine or picture, or we often don't get scenes of him outside of the fight, and it's like
Right.
as much as I don't want to just stay outside of the fight for sure, I'm always the guy who's like, "Where's the next action scene?" I do that more than most people, but
Right.
I do want to see this guy in his everyday existence because I want to get invested. The first movie, where you're seeing the videos of his wife, like it invests you in that way, and then I haven't seen the third one, but in the second one, I know. I haven't seen the fourth. There's a fourth.
Yeah.
I've not seen many of these movies, but the ones I have seen, the first one I thought obviously character study better, simple revenge story. But by the second one, it's like the world building was huge. It was really good at world building, but character development, to your point, it's like this could have just been Executioner number 5. It's just
Right.
like
Right.
just the assassin of all assassins, which is cool. But I really want to know who is John Wick. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
maybe that ruins it for people because I know when you look at horror like Michael Myers, people don't want to know who that is. They're like, don't give me his
Yeah.
backstory. I do not want to hear where that comes from. I like the mystery. So perhaps there are fans out there who, for a John
Yeah.
Wick-esque character, are like, I need the mysterious phantom
Right.
killer guy. Maybe.
Right. Taking him back
But
to when he was
I'm
a
with you.
young guy making stupid decisions. They would be like, "No, I can never,
Yeah,
I
like,
can
no,
never
no,
look
no,
him
you're
in the
ruining it.
eyes."
Yeah, so maybe.
Yeah, I think that he's contrasted highly though, because if you think of the two big action franchises, it would be John Wick and Mission Impossible in our
That was
day
the
and
one I was
age.
going to pivot to a minute ago, was
Nice.
Mission Impossible.
Well, I think that Ethan is the king of being character developed through action. Everything that happens shows a new side of who he is. Even
Hmm.
one of my least favorite tropes is kind of having the character saved by anyone, which minor spoilers for um, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. There's a scene where he doesn't kill somebody when he probably should have. Matt Helm would have definitely have said to kill this person. Um, but she later helps save his life because his character is so true to being someone who values the singular life and the life of the many as the most important thing. That's why he does everything that he does. So it makes sense that he's not just going to be killing people willy-nilly. He's only going to be killing people if it's absolutely the last resort, and that ends up coming back to save him. It's I think that that's
Right.
just so masterfully done to
That was
take a
smart.
trope that I really dislike and make me admire it and admire the character more for it is very well done through their storytelling.
And with that franchise too, what I was going to point to is the fact that it does another one of the best kind of character building tools, or like it uses one of the best character building tools of showing contrast between characters by letting them interact with each other. He's got that ensemble cast. You see how he interacts. I'm not the Mission Impossible guy. You'll know the character names, but like guy behind the desk and like the girl, and there's all these different
Yeah.
people around him in the team, and the way he interacts with them and who they are will reveal who he is not, and vice versa. And it's like a
Right.
really good way to show your character for who he is contrast them with someone who he's not. Like Noah meets his brother, well, doesn't meet his brother, but is with his brother Roman Redford in this book. And
Yeah.
Roman Redford is very, like this with Noah. They have gaps. They're different. You're gonna see, oh, he doesn't stand with that philosophy. He does with this, and you're gonna meet both characters through their conflict and dialogue and just their lifestyles. And I think Mission Impossible does that really well of letting the characters feed into each other and build each other.
Yeah, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that it's so interesting that these two, John Wick and Mission Impossible, are probably very similar levels of like non-stop action. It's different action for sure. Whereas John Wick is more like martial arts film, gun fu, all that stuff. Mission Impossible has some of that for sure, but it also has chases and all this other
Big
stuff.
set pieces, man. Like
Yeah,
hanging off sides
exactly,
of planes. Whoa, it's my
exactly.
favorite
But
stunt. I think still is
yeah, that
the fourth one, fifth one, fifth
yeah,
one.
when he takes off on the
Sick.
cargo plane, dude,
Yeah,
crazy stuff. Yeah, they're fantastic. But I think that that's what's they occupy such a different space in my mind. You know, like in a world, this world, I could see somebody actually taking like a Mission Impossible seriously enough for it to win some sort of Oscar. It would be crazy for it to happen, but those movies actually seem to have like more substance behind them, where it's like I think a lot of people are like, oh, they just wrote a crazy plot just to get this crazy set piece to happen. And that's the whole movie is based around Tom Cruise hanging off of a plane in South Africa for Final Reckoning, or Tom Cruise climbing through this um, sunken submarine. They're clearly only doing it for this. But as these stories unfold, you start seeing that the actual story itself is also fantastic, you know, and it's not just the action. And I think it's because of the characters. All like you said, Ethan Hunt by himself, I don't know if he's strong enough to hold up a whole movie on his own, because he is kind of a reactionary guy. He's always like, "Oh, I got to do this now. I got to do this now." But you learn to get to know him, and you see these different things, and then you have Benji, who's always kind of like in over his head and funny because of that. You have Rebecca Ferguson's character, then you have Haley Atwell's character, and you got Ving Rhames playing Luther. You know, you have these characters that all like grow with you, and so that's why I think it is like, oh yeah, maybe they're going after another nuclear bomb. Haven't we heard this before? But it's like, no, it's different every time, and it's different because of how the characters handle it. And I think that that's something that's so crucial. Is you could give action beat 1 to 5 different characters, and it's possible that 4 of them would be exactly the same and handle it in a way that's like, oh, that was kind of cool, but I really don't care. But if you give it to number 5 and he handles it differently than all the rest, and there's something that comes in from kind of the side and changes how this would have been handled, that's where you get something that's truly special, I think, where the character's personality affects the action greatly, and that's what makes something
absolutely.
exciting.
Yeah, dude, that struck a nerve with me thinking about Bull Mountain, one of my other favorite books of all time. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
I think that really precisely nails it. Is like the personality impacting the action, and kind of once you're as invested in the character development and kind of the family dynamics or the character dynamics
Yeah.
as you are the action, that's when like the book becomes impossible to put down for me. It's like
Yeah.
in Bull Mountain, it's like incredible. What I don't know what you would call it, just like family drama or like tension. Like
hmm
it's just family drama that is so engaging, so sweeping that it starts in. Dude, I love that book so much. It starts like 2 generations back, and it was like talking about like this one gunshot back 2 years or not 2 decades ago, 2 generations
Yeah.
ago, is still echoing back into what is happening now, and it becomes so intricate, and you're learning about different characters and how their webs intertangle, and you're like so invested in just the character part that you forgot the action is coming and is going to be
Right,
sick,
dude.
and then you're like so invested in just the family, and then whoa, the action is happening too. I lose my mind, so it's if you can really invest them in the personality of the person, and investing in like, oh yeah, why are they the way they are? Oh, that's interesting. He did that. What does that mean for that guy? Oh, what if he does that? Then what does that mean for him? And then they all intersect, and it's like I gotta read Bull Mountain again. That's what that means.
Yeah.
It's so good.
I gotta read it for the first time. Um, this is one of the other topic suggestions that we'll definitely talk about eventually, was what makes men's adventure fiction different from literary works, or
Yeah,
is there a crossover? What is the crossover? That came from our boy Jeff. Um, and I think that we will touch on that a little bit today, because just thinking
yeah,
about
for
it,
sure.
maybe that is one of the main differences. is men's adventure fiction is known for the action and for the engaging side of that stuff. But maybe when something becomes literary is when you have those slow moments and they're just as engaging as the action, which I know is true um, of Odyssey of Fire. There's a handful of scenes that are just people talking, and it's just as tense as the fist fights or bullets flying. Like the exchange of words is just as fast paced and well handled as the exchange of gunfire, the exchange of blows, and that's super cool to
Right.
be reading something and be like, oh man, this is. I obviously I want to get to another fight scene, but
Mm.
I don't feel that very much right now. I think I mentioned that about a Chester Drum book. He takes a girl out to dinner, and you're reading it, and you're like, wow, this is just as engaging as when he's in a grueling boxing match with Shell Scott. Like I love it. I can't put it down either way. So I think that can only happen with good characters, right? That's one of my
Yeah.
biggest complaints with any of the Executioner spin-offs, maybe even some with the Executioner himself, is he's so kind of flat and
Similar to John Wick in
basic.
that
Yeah,
lineage, I think, you know.
exactly. And I remember reading the Penetrator books, classic. Gotta love the Penetrator.
Phrasing? Whoa.
um, and bro, that guy has some of the sickest fight scenes ever. I remember reading them and being like, man, this is so cool. I don't care at all though. Why don't I care at all? Like I literally remember feeling that, like the way he described the quick draw from the holster and then shooting the guys and then going into like hand to hand combat. I was like, man, if this character was cool, this would be one of my favorite books just for the like fight scene descriptions alone. But I just don't care about the character at all. It's basically like cardboard cutout A going to fight cardboard cutout B. It's so flat, and it's not per se that they're able to beat these guys with ease. Like I like that trope if handled well, but you have to have personality. If the personality is just like I just win every fight, then it's like there's no personality, But if it's like I win every fight, but you get a snappy monologue at the same time, like because that's Chester Drum usually wins the fights he's in. Shell Scott usually wins the fight he's in, but you get to know that character because they're so much fun to engage in. So you're never like, oh, you're just cardboard cutout A beating everybody else. You're always like, man, this is my good friend. Maybe he's telling me the story a little more like extravagantly than it actually happened, but I believe this guy because he's a crazy guy,
Dude, that's a good point of like treating these characters like people, you know what I mean? If when you and I meet, we're talking and we're enjoying each other and we're not really going into like our tragic backstories. We're not really going and
Right.
telling you what's formulated us. And I think in writing, we often lean so heavily on that. It's like, all right, I need to develop this character. Let me tell you their fatal flaw. Let me tell you what happened in their childhood. It's like we need to, but really, like the Shell Scott stuff and the Nate Colt stuff does it perfectly, where it's like a lot of the time it is just through the character in the moment being who they are. You're like, I like
Yeah.
that guy. Just how it happens in real life, where you're like, just come across someone at a convention like Pulp Fest this year when you show up at 2026 Pulp Fest, which is actually Veritas Fest. When you show up there, you're just talking to someone, you're like, I like this guy. I like this person's whole attitude, their mindset, and that's what you see with these books
Right.
sometimes. So I think, with character development in general, you don't, I don't know, at least maybe I'm just talking to myself, but you don't always have to just like push so deeply into their psychology. It can also just be who they are. I like who they are. Like I like how they interact in this they have flavor, they have personality, you know what I mean?
Right. Right. That's a really good point. There's probably maybe like I don't know, 2% of the time, 1% of the time, you meet someone and learn their worst part about them immediately. Like that never
Yeah.
happens. In fact, people actively avoid that happening at all costs. So if you
Yeah,
do
that's when
think
you
of
get a
that,
phone
like,
call like, this person just emotionally downloaded everything. I was just checking out of the grocery store. What just
yeah,
happened?
I know. And if handled well as a person, there's stuff that will come up, right? Like you and I sat at Pulp Fest for 8 hours, 2 days in a row.
Right. Things
It's
definitely
like,
did come up.
yeah, you can only have the sheen of everything is cool about me or everything is good about my life last for maybe an hour or two, and then something slips up where you're like, "Oh yeah, did I just say that my life is not great?" It happens, and I think that that's something that you bring to the table that's really cool about these characters. It's something that I like about how you and I are handling Nate and Noah, right? In the first book, when you first meet these guys, they are the comprehensive man, or pretty darn close to it. Like, they handle situations well. They may be in over their head, but they're capable enough to deal with it. And that is super engaging. But if you have 45 books of just, you get to a Mike Hammer kind of guy, where I think it was Jared Jenkins who was like, Mike Hammer just seems like the guy who was writing it was like, no, I'm the best, and then I beat this guy up, and then this girl fell in love with me, and then this guy also got beat up by me, and nobody could ever lose. I could never lose to anybody, and it gets boring and unengaging. So I think that similar though to how you are when you meet somebody. When I meet somebody, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, I'm actually like cripplingly scared of poison ivy. Like, I would never start any conversation with that. You would be an idiot to do that. Like, that's something that flows out of knowing a person. And it's the same thing with these characters, right? You start out being like, well, is this the sickest character of all time? And then you jump into book 2 and you're like, oh, he's just like me, actually. Like, he's anxiety filled and angst ridden, and he's dealing with stress, and he's not handling it as cool as he was the first time. And I think that that's what's cool about men's adventure fiction, is to have you have these ideals, like idealized characters like Tarzan. Tarzan's a primo example of someone who you could just copycat that guy and learn how to be a good man and a strong man, because he's a little more flat. He's less dynamic, but as the books go
His
on,
backstory is so absurdly cool too that it helps.
yeah, it is super cool. Yeah, just copycat that guy. Just at a young age, run into the woods, grow up with a bunch of apes. You'll be a beast. Everybody will be impressed. Teach yourself to read. It's really easy stuff. Don't think too hard about it. And then you have other characters who are not necessarily at all admirable. I mean, think of like Parker. That guy is pretty hateful, but there's things that you can learn from him, gauge from him, and there's things that also can ring true about you and kind of put in perspective the negative qualities of yourself. So it's super interesting to have such a wide range of things, and to have, even in one character, the stuff that can happen as these characters' stories unfold, and you can see them further along and be like, wow, they are a really cool person. And then you go back to when they're younger and it's like, oh man, they made a terrible decision and accidentally killed somebody, or oh, they did this, or fill in the blank for whatever it is. But I think that that's what's so cool, is to have just like a real person. You can meet someone and be like, man, this is the coolest person I ever met. They've got everything together. And then as you talk to them, they can be like, they reveal that, oh yeah, when I was 15, I was the worst person of all time. I almost went to jail. I was almost in juvie, and you're like, whoa, you seem like you have everything together now. And then they're like, oh yeah, well, this is what happened, and this is how, and that's how you get to know people. And that's why I love stories, is because everybody is a character at the end of the day, and you get to hear their backstories. But like you said, bro, for the writers, no one is ever starting out their story with the worst part. There's no way that I'm meeting random guy on the street and telling him my
that for a bit.
Yeah, maybe depending on what it is, maybe forever. And if you have characters whose story has something like that, that can be a crucial part of their character development. It's like, oh, anytime this subject comes up, they immediately change the topic, and that is. It can be done artfully so that you barely even notice that happens. And then as the book progresses, you're like, wait a minute. Every time they ask Nate about his uncle or what he's doing in Indonesia, he immediately stops talking about it, or it could be done. I don't think it's done artfully in that one. It's pretty clear that this guy does not want to talk about that, but it could be done where the guy is actually good enough, either the author or the character is good enough at changing the subject that the reader doesn't even process it until it becomes unavoidable. It's stuff like that can be layered in really well.
It's important questions in your real life, and in your writing characters, is just the question of why, like actually stopping and intentionally thinking like, why is my character want to be here right now? Or why does he, like, you know, there's romances in both of ours. Like, why does he like Magnolia? Why does Noah like Rebecca? Tell me why. You know what I mean? And so if you ask yourself that question, it's like you actually learn about that character, you know, and you learn what attracts him, what he's after, what is engaging to him and her, and what's engaging in him to her. And
Yeah.
it's stuff like that that helps give depth, but also, again, just like real people, it's good to remember that we're walking contradictions in a lot of ways. You know, like Noah will think that he's this way and he'll really believe this, but then he'll act in a way that's counter to it and mess things up, because that's what we do as people too. And so using those contradictions as well are good ways to further make that character feel real, because no person
Yeah.
lives to their code 100% of the time. That's when you get like a Doc Savage, a Superman situation. You know, it's like, well,
It,
not the new Superman. The new Superman did what I liked. I like that. But like the concept when you hear the Superman or the Doc Savage,
right,
where
right.
this dude, there is no contradiction, there is no mistakes. This is me, perfect right now.
Yeah. I'm the
So
best.
I'm with you, dude. Just making him more human overall is definitely a good way to get that character development in there. And with the action, balancing it with action, just remember that when you make stupid decisions, there are consequences. And in action films,
Right.
those consequences are fun to deal with. You know, it's very cool to see those consequences.
This is a tough question because I don't even know if I have an answer or even if there could be a quantitative answer. But to you, when do you feel like there's too much character or too much action? Like, is there a clear cutoff where you're like, I can't, this can't. I mean, it can be engaging and I can like it still, but it's definitely not near the top of my favorite things. Um,
I think it's more like an alchemy type of thing, where if they're working together and you feel that fusion, it's super
yeah.
powerful. And it's like Bull Mountain, where like I get viscerally excited. But if the chemistry's wrong, dude, if they have one too much of the other, then it's just like, that's not, I don't like that. Maybe, you know, think about it like a recipe. Like, I don't like that, too bitter. I don't like that. Or that's way too
Yeah.
sweet. Get that away from me. I,
Right.
uh,
Right.
I think it is a lot like that for me, where you just have to have the mixture be right. And for me personally, again, this is personal taste. I think I need this mixture where it's like action, character development, or staggering A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, rather than the first half of the story is like deep character development, and then second
Yeah.
half is nonstop action. Like, for me personally, that doesn't ever hit as well, because I am impatient and I'm like, yeah, okay,
Right. Right.
I can't just fully invest in this character without seeing the action. I'm so sorry, unless it's really really good. I don't know.
Yeah. That's well said. Um,
Yeah,
I
what's your
think I
thought on
love.
that?
I think I like when, to kind of the point of the real time thrillers, I love a story that can just have action is like nonstop happening, but within that action, you're, because there's peaks and valleys in the action sequences ever. Because if you just have only peaks or only valleys, it's no fun. So in the valleys, as the action's like slowing down, you're then bringing up the peak of character development and what's going on with these characters and how they're handling the action. I love a good witty conversation during a fight scene. That's one of my favorite things, you know, and to slip something like that into a story gives you a new read on the characters, you know. A primo example of character development in the fight scene would be the bathroom fight with Henry Cavill and Ethan Hunt and the other guy, the John Lark guy, where they're going against each other, and you see each of these characters reacting to the fight differently and getting exasperated, getting frustrated, having the thought of like, I don't know if we can beat this guy, married with the thought of we got to beat this guy soon because I have to go out there and put on the face mask of him so I can get this job done. You know, like you have so many things layered in there that illustrate each character's kind of thought process and mind behind it. And it's there's even Cavill's character has an ulterior motive that you don't know about, but you see played out through that fight. It's just fantastically done. So
Yeah,
I think
there
if
you
you
go. That
can,
is a great example, dude. Wow,
yeah,
perfect
if
fight to like show character development in a fight,
yeah,
you know, and
if you
plot
can
in a
do
fight,
both,
everything.
That's what I really like. I love when you slip both of these bad boys in there, and so I don't know. For me, I'm not sure what it is because, like I said, there's some of my favorite things are nonstop action, but they pay enough attention to the character that the development happens. Whereas I feel like John Wick falls short of that. I really like John Wick, but it will never be in my top 10, especially not for any sort of character stuff. So I don't know. I don't know what like you said, it is really just like there is no, oh, if 75% of the book has
Yeah.
action in it, I am definitely not going to like it. Or, oh, if only 15% of the book has action in it, I'm not going to like it. I think it is what you said of just like peppering it in at the right times in the right place and making sure you're also peppering in the character development. I think more so for me, if you were to give me the character development in the first quarter of the book and then it went nonstop action, I would be okay with that as long as there was like also a little bit of even the 50-50. If like once you hit the midway point, there's no more character development. I think I'd be okay with that as long as the first half did a good job and it wasn't exclusively character development. To your point, if it's just like slogging through the heaviest, wordiest character development of all time and you get to the midway point and then it's nonstop action, I would be like, I could never get through the first half.
Right.
I'd be too taxed on
Makes me
my
think
mind.
of Ungentlemanly Warfare, to quote another, or like, note another Henry Cavill movie.
Yeah.
The
Uh-huh.
opening to that on the boat is another like tension action scene, but we're just learning everything we need to know about this team, the
Right.
characters, how they work together. Very,
Yeah, well
very
said.
good way of doing that. I think the best we've ever done together with that was Cowboy and the Criminal. I was
Yeah.
impressed with how much character development came from each of our guys within basically nonstop action short
Yeah,
story,
dude.
which was a cool, impressive thing for us to have pulled off. Kudos to you on that for making such a cool character in Sal that drew out, and that's where I really reinforced the concept of characters contrasting each other, teaching you about the
Right,
other.
right.
Like you gave me so much that drew so much out of Noah, and showed the way that his strengths were actually huge weaknesses that were like, dude,
Right.
you gotta chill. Like, stop that. So I
Yeah,
think that
dude.
was one of the better explorations of Noah that's been written yet.
Thanks, man. I think that was a really fun one to write, and I think that
It
that's
was
a,
cool.
a good point. And that's a primo example of that kind of idea that we've been talking about. Is like there's times when you read something and you're like, "Whoa, this is nonstop action," but this is also somehow nonstop character development. And I'm having so much fun with both sides of the thing. Like the action is happening to characters that I care about, and when you find that synergy and things are, that's when you have a really great story where there are no peaks and valleys because when the one side of the story is in a valley, the other side is in a peak. So you're getting a dual roller like
Right.
a dual roller coaster at the same time. And when you find an author who does that, that's when you know. Because I mean, like we said before, there's so many. I read so many books. I listen to so many audiobooks. There's times where I'm just like, okay, this is fine. It's getting one half of what I like, right? And then there's other times, and those can be a slog to get through. I'm never excited to go to work to listen to my audiobook if it's not that good. And then there's other times, dude, where it's like, man, I could work all day. I could work straight through the night because the story is so engaging that it's pulling me in. So finding those, I mean, that's what we're here for. That's the Men's Adventure Fiction podcast, is to
Right.
read stories, watch movies that are like that you just can't put down because they hit everything just right. So if you've got a suggestion below for something that masterfully handles character development and action, drop it. If you have any other thoughts on this, drop it in the comments, join the Discord. We can talk about character versus action all day because it's one of the best things
It's
to
all
talk
about, man.
about.
It's what it's all about. And if you can pull it off yourself, it's time to write your men's adventure fiction based stories. We
Yes,
officially
dude.
open submissions. There's an Instagram post with the details, but the gist of it is you need to send your submission to info@veritasent.com. And
Hmm.
what's the word count again?
It is 15 to 35,000 words.
Okay.
There is, depending on the story, you can have a plus or minus 5,000 words kind of window.
Right.
Try to stick to the word count, but if you really are like at 3675 or something like that, send it. Don't let 5,000 words keep you from submitting it. We'll review it and decide.
And then make the subject math 2 submission with your last name. So Men's Adventure Fiction is the math. MAF 2 submission, your last name.
Yeah. And then
so
the deadline is March 14th, I believe.
March 14th. Yeah.
Make sure you're sending your stuff in. That gives a month and a half to get everything done on the back end before May starts. So very important to get those in by March 14th.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this. The first one was so fun. So many good stories. So many amazing people met through that. So hoping the same thing kind of happens. We get to build the community larger and meet more writers, get more great stories. If you know anybody who might be interested, if you know somebody who's trying to be a writer, you're like, this is a good way to get them paid. You know what I mean? The winners of these get monetary prizes. So you could become a professional writer overnight if you get this, because you'll have gotten
super
money
exciting
for your writing.
I wish we were able to submit to
I know.
stuff.
I want to submit to Men's Adventure Fiction.
But we have we'll see how long we can last, a new segment alert. And it's supposed to be 52 weeks of this. This is from our very own Zerk in the Discord. When we started this episode topic suggestion, he suggested this. He said this would be more of a 52-week thing, but it is 52 weeks of sci-fi that LS Goodish might like. So we're really trying to dive in here and see if we can find any sci-fi that Luke will like. I don't know how we're going to do it, because you're obviously not going to be reading 52 sci-fi books in a week. In 52 weeks, that would be impossible. Maybe you can look at the back cover, and just on reading the back cover alone, you can give it a yay or a nay.
And this stops once I pick one to read fully, I guess.
And then we'll get a weekly update on how good it is or how terrible it is. So for the first one, I'm going to submit my 2 ideas.
Okay.
We talked about one on the phone. It's Northwest of Earth.
This is not the one with the weird mind.
It is the one with the weird mind-touching thing. We're going to get you started off just on one that you probably aren't going to like at all. Fantastically well-written stuff. Super weird subject matter.
What's it called again? I'm going to write these bad boys down.
Northwest of Smith. Northwest of Earth. I think his name is Northwest Smith.
Okay.
And then a movie suggestion, because we talked about it during the show, is Solo, a Star Wars story.
Yeah, that is my homework. I have to do that. I said I was going to.
I think you will like that one. That one I think works best if you aren't really a big fan of Star Wars. My wife hates Star Wars, but she loves Solo.
Nice. Yeah, I'm not a fan. I've seen a few of them. I like Revenge of the Sith. I'll tell you that much.
My man, that's a great one. Dude, we can stop the 52 weeks now. Cut the.
I did it.
Cut the presses. One from Zerk, though, was Starship Troopers, which we should definitely do a dive on, because I've heard that's
a movie I like. I need to read the book.
I've heard the book is significantly different and better. So we should definitely do an episode on that one of these days.
Starship Troopers, yeah. That'd be cool.
There you go. We got three to start off with. The start of a new 52-week long. Well, hopefully it's shorter than that, but I got a feeling it's going to be.
Yeah, next week I'm just, those were the best thing ever. I'm a sci-fi guy now. Welcome to the Men's Adventure Sci-Fi Podcast.
Yes, dude, it's genius. It's great. Yeah, so we'll figure that out. Other than that, we're golden. Check out Fire in the Tall Grass and Crime is My Caper just to get them further along. We gotta vote by telling people that Men's Adventure Fiction is back, dude. Get this bad boy to the #1 spot, dethrone. I think somehow right now it's actually Blood Meridian is the #1 in Men's Adventure Fiction, right?
He's got to dethrone Cormac himself. What?
But literally, like 2 to 60 are all gross smut stuff.
Sexual book, dude. What?
Yeah, and it's all AI art too, which is almost even
very weird.
Everything's just so disturbing.
Who are they for? Is my question. Are those for guys or are those for girls?
I don't know. I've also wondered that. They
Who's
literally
reading
have
that? But because someone's reading that. A lot of people are reading that. More than
somebody
they're
is
reading Fire in
reading
the Tall Grass.
it, but we can take it over, baby. At least get this to the number two spot, and
Right, I'll sit
to
next
get
to McCormack. That's fine.
Crime is
Car's
My
My Caper,
Caper,
number one.
number one new release. I think it's at 8 right now. It's been slipping and sliding. So
Yeah.
one final push. We'll see what we can do. But as always, the support is unbelievable. Thank you guys for picking up
Thank you guys.
these
Seriously.
stories. If you haven't seen it, both the first two chapters of Crime is My Caper are on our Substack, so you can jump over there and read it, get a taste for it before you pick it up if you want to. Other than that, we're very happy to start 2026 off with a bang. Going to be a fun year. Lots of cool stuff coming up. Get those Men's Adventure Fiction May 2 submissions in, and you'll be golden.
Hey guys, thank you for being here and spending time with us. Thank you, Nathaniel. And I'll see you guys next time.
He told me, Uncle. Told you what? That you killed my dad. It had to be done. What? Even if I do this, what would you do when everything you thought you knew was snatched out from under you?